Tolkien's works are brimming with characters full of virtue, steadfastness, and wisdom. But when discussing them, Faramir is often overlooked. However, his virtue, his wisdom, and his refusal to take the ring for himself saved the halfling's quest and Middle-earth from all but certain doom. "Not if I found it on the highway would I take it," I said, "even if I were such a man as to desire this thing, and even though I knew not clearly what this thing was when I spoke, still I should take those words as a vow and be held by them." These are the words of Faramir to Frodo after Sam mistakenly reveals their quest to the young captain of Gondor. Hello friends, and welcome. My name is Seth, and I'm excited to share with you some well-earned comforts. As we dive into the works of Tolkien, there's no telling where we'll be swept off to. Before we dive into the story today, I ask that you like, comment, and subscribe. It'll really help as we grow this channel. In this video, we will be exploring one of my favorite interactions in all of the Legendarium. It comes in Book 4, the second half of The Two Towers, and it is often overshadowed by Peter Jackson's rendering of this scene. While I understand the liberties taken for cinematic purposes, I believe this is such a powerful scene, and I really wish that PJ would have remained more faithful to the book. Tolkien's version contains a multitude of wonderful lessons, and at its core, it's a scene about virtue and wisdom. Virtue to hold true to one's word and maintaining a high moral standard, and wisdom in pronouncing judgment on the fate of Middle-earth. So what allowed Faramir to show such virtue and pass the test that his brother Boromir had failed? Well, to understand this, we must travel back in time to Frodo and Faramir's initial interaction. Faramir and the other rangers of Ithilien stumble upon the hobbits and restrain them. The rangers were about to be engaged in a heated battle as they were preparing to ambush the men of Harad who were on their way to bolster Sauron's forces. When asked by Frodo to just let the tired travelers rest and to be set free, Faramir responds by saying that there are no travelers in this land, only servants of the Dark Tower or of the White, and he demands that Frodo explain their presence in the land. Upon doing so, Faramir is intrigued yet confused. He learns that Frodo is one of the last people to have seen Boromir alive, and he questions him. What is Isildur's bane? Frodo speaks cautiously and doesn't reveal the reason for the quest, and here is where we get our first glimpse at Faramir's wisdom. He does not jump to a rash decision, and he orders that the hobbits be detained while the ambush takes place. After defeating the Southrons, Faramir returns to continue his discussion with Frodo. Being a man of wisdom, truth, and a descendant of Númenor, Faramir is aware that Frodo is hiding something regarding the purpose of their quest. After some interrogation, Faramir reveals to Frodo that he is Boromir's brother, and he knows Boromir is dead. Frodo is shocked. "Do you mean that he is dead, and that you knew it? You have been trying to trap me in words, playing with me, or are you now trying to snare me with a falsehood?" "I would not snare even an orc with a falsehood," replied Faramir. Again, he is a man of virtue, and his actions are bound to his word. As the interrogation continues, Sam becomes frustrated and pushes back against the questions of Faramir. "Patience! Do not speak before your master, whose wit is greater than yours, and I do not need any to teach me of our peril. Even so, I spare a brief time in order to judge justly in a hard matter. Were I as hasty as you, I might have slain you long ago. For I am commanded to slay all whom I find in this land, without leave of the Lord of Gondor. But I do not slay man or beast needlessly, and not gladly, even when it is needed. Neither do I talk in vain." Faramir understands the risk of remaining in the land where the ambush just took place. He also understands the risk of a rash judgment. He shows that he is thoughtful and careful with his actions. Though he is a man of war, he is led by his virtue and his wisdom. As the conversation continues, Faramir questions Frodo about Boromir, and he explains the vision that brought to him the Horn of Gondor, split in two, which signified the death of Boromir. At this news, Frodo is grieved, and he believes that he and Sam are the last of the Fellowship. He then wearily asks to be released. While Faramir hasn't yet decided on a course of action, he trusts to his wisdom and his discernment. "You, Frodo, I doubt no longer. If hard days have made me any judge of men's words and faces, then I may make a guess at halflings. Though there is something strange about you, Frodo, an elvish air, maybe. But more lies upon our words together than I thought at first. I should now take you back to Minas Tirith to answer there to Denethor, and my life will be justly forfeit if I now choose a course that proves ill for my city. So I will not decide in haste what is to be done, yet we must move hence without more delay. Faramir is once again explaining to the hobbits the weight of his decision. He is weighing and balancing the halfling's quest that he yet knows little about, along with his own orders and the fate of not only Gondor, but of his own life. Faramir is the captain, and the decision rests solely on his shoulders. A misjudgment here could be catastrophic in ways that he does not yet understand. Yet he knows this. He decides to take the hobbits to Hineth Anun, a hidden outpost of Gondor. As the company is on their way to Hineth Anun, Faramir begins to speak with Frodo again. He explains that he cut off their speech earlier, as he sensed the conversation was heading toward a place that should not be openly debated among many men. Thus he begins questioning Frodo about Isildur's bane and the behavior of Boromir. Now I loved him dearly, and would gladly avenge his death, yet I knew him well. As the brother of Boromir, Faramir watched him frequently become frustrated that they were a family of stewards and not of kings. He explained Boromir's desire to see the honor of Gondor restored, yet also the pride that Boromir took in his own contributions to that honor. Faramir knew that Isildur's bane would be a point of contention for Boromir if Boromir had thought that it could be used in some way to help Gondor and his personal glory therein. But Frodo, I pressed you hard at first about Isildur's bane. Forgive me. It was unwise in such an hour and place. I had not had time for thought. We had a hard fight, and there was more than enough to fill my mind. But even as I spoke with you, I drew nearer to the mark, and so deliberately shot wider. Though Faramir is uncertain about the specifics of Isildur's bane, he understands its importance. Through the questioning of Gandalf in years prior, and the current discussion with Frodo, Faramir guessed that Isildur's bane was an heirloom of sorts that was taken from the Dark Lord at the Battle of the Dargalad. But then he reassures Frodo with some beautiful dialogue. But fear no more. I would not take this thing, even if it lay by the highway. Not were Minas Tirith falling in ruin, and I alone could save her, so using the weapon of the Dark Lord for her good and my glory. No, I do not wish for such triumphs, Frodo, son of Drogo. For myself, I would see the white tree in flower again in the courts of the kings, and the silver crown return, and Minas Tirith in peace, Minas Anor again as of old, full of light, high and fair, beautiful as a queen among other queens, not a mistress of many slaves, nay, not even a kind mistress of willing slaves. War must be while we defend our lives against a destroyer who would devour all. But I do not love the bright sword for its sharpness, nor the arrow for its swiftness, nor the warrior for his glory. I love only that which they defend, the city of the men of Númenor, and I would have her loved for her memory, her ancientry, her beauty, and her present wisdom, not feared, save as men may fear the dignity of a man old and wise. So fear me not. And this is where the tables begin to turn, and Frodo begins to trust Faramir. Yet he still doesn't reveal the specifics of his quest. You see, the difference between Faramir's words and Boromir's actions show to Frodo just how different the two brothers are. Boromir wanted glory for Gondor first, but he also wanted the glory for himself. He desired to be a king and to take matters into his own hands. This was evidenced by his actions during the breaking of the Fellowship when he tried to take the ring from Frodo. By contrast, Faramir desires to see the glory of Gondor restored to a previous beauty and to have a time of peace. He is a fierce and capable warrior, but he fights with a desire for peace rather than a desire for his own glory. Because of this, his virtue and his wisdom, he is able to look at the second and third order consequences of his actions, something Boromir was unable to do. Boromir was unable to look past his own desires and search for personal glory. As the company arrived at Hineth Anun, Faramir took the hobbits to the back of the cave in order to have a more private conversation. They told many tales and spoke of many things regarding the Fellowship, the loss of Gandalf on the bridge against the Balrog, the stewards of Gondor, and eventually the dealings with the elves of Lothlorien. And this is where Sam slips. He implies that Boromir took his peril with him into Lorien. It's my opinion that in Lorien he first saw clearly what I had guessed sooner, what he wanted. From the moment he first saw it, he wanted the enemy's ring. Sam realizes just what he has done, and he is aghast. Yet he challenges Faramir by stating that now is a chance for Faramir to show his quality. So it seems. So that is the answer to all the riddles. The one ring that was thought to have perished from the world, and Boromir tried to take it by force, and you escaped, and ran all the way to me. And here in the wild I have you, 2 halflings and a host of men at my call, and the Ring of Rings, a pretty stroke of fortune. A chance for Faramir, captain of Gondor, to show his quality. And with that, Faramir stood up tall and stern with glinting in his eyes, and the hobbits sprung up and stood side by side and put their backs against the wall. And Faramir continues, Alas for Boromir, it was too sore a trial. How you have increased my sorrow, you 2 strange wanderers from a far country, bearing the peril of men. But you are less judges of men than I of halflings. We are truth speakers, we men of Gondor. We boast seldom and then perform, or die in the attempt. Not if I found it on the highway would I take it, I said. Even if I were such a man to desire this thing, even though I knew not clearly what this thing was when I spoke. Still, I should take these words as a vow and be held by them. For a moment, Faramir sees through Boromir's eyes and almost laughs at the fortune of the hobbits. They escaped Boromir, just to be recaptured by his brother with a host of men at his call. Faramir, the younger brother, the less praised and often overshadowed, finally has a chance to succeed where Boromir failed. The honor and the glory that would be his if he brought the enemy's ring to Gondor. Yet has been shown many times thus far, Faramir's ultimate motives are different than his brother's. He laments for Boromir, now fully understanding the trial that he faced. He understands what ultimately brought his brother to ruin. In his virtue, Faramir reiterates his earlier statement to the hobbits. He will hold fast to his word, though he didn't understand the full implications before. In his wisdom, he has not acted rashly, nor has he made a hasty judgment. He has acted as a wise leader should, which allows him to judge accordingly. Ultimately, Faramir decides to let the hobbits go with their guide Smeagol. He provides provisions and counsel for the hobbits as they seek to continue their quest. The fate of the free peoples of Middle-earth rested upon his virtue and his wisdom. And he passed the test. This scene is applicable to life and the world that we live in today. In a world full of liars, cheaters, and people only capable of seeing first-order consequences, we should all strive to follow Faramir's example. Stand firm in your virtue, seek wisdom, and judge accordingly. As this video comes to a close, I ask that if you enjoyed our discussion today, to please light a beacon by sharing with family and friends. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I thank you all for staying with me until the end, and I bid you all a very fond farewell.